A very good afternoon to one and all. Thank you so much for joining us today. On behalf of IIM Shillong, I, Anshika Singhal, welcome you all to the Business Leadership Summit 2022. I am excited to introduce you to the operations panel discussion of the summit around the topic Modernizing Operations through Disruptive Technology and Resilience. I bid a very warm welcome to our renowned speakers who took out their valuable time and join us today to be part of the summit. We are honored to have you all with us. We will now take a few moments to briefly introduce each member of today's panel. First, I'd like to introduce Mr. Amol Nagar, SPU Head and Director of Manufacturing Operations, Global Sourcing and Supply Chain at GE Aviation. Mr. Nagar is an alum of IIT Delhi. With 2 decades of experience across aviation, automotive engineering industries, Mr. Nagar has taken up initiatives from designing supply chain solutions to building organizational capabilities. He has a track record of achieving some of the most challenging transformation initiatives in the industry within quality, delivery, and cost goals by adopting Lean, Six Sigma, digital tools, enabling predictable execution and optimization of processes and resources. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Rajesh K. Sharma, Director in Operations Excellence at Whirlpool Asia, and is part of the leadership team involved in the strategic planning of new technology, product introduction, and mega projects. Mr. Sharma is a manufacturing management and strategy expert with over 26 years of experience in the automotive industry. In the past, he was also associated with Fiat Industry Automobiles and Honda Automobiles. He is well versed with smart manufacturing and Industry 4.0 concepts and is also expert in WCM methodology and the way of working. I extend a very warm welcome to the discussion, sir. Now, Sarvesh will take on the discussion forward.
Thanks, Sita. So next speaker we have is Dr. Ravi Prakash Mathur. He is the head of Global Logistics and Supply Chain Excellence at Dr. Reddy's Laboratories. With over 25 years of work experience in supply chain and logistics, Dr. Mathur specializes in handling global logistics, digital supply chain planning systems, and supply chain transformations. His research paper on Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, Inventory Management Under the Resource Constraint, was published at Harvard Business Publishing. Dr. Mathur was adjudged amongst India's top 25 digitally thought leaders by SAP ACE in 2013. He is also a well-known author and speaker. A warm welcome to you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Ravi Kumar. He is the head of supply chain at Johnson & Johnson. Mr. Kumar has an experience of over 17 years at Johnson & Johnson in planning, logistics, warehousing, and distribution. He has extensively worked in RFID and IoT technology and its application in the healthcare supply chain. Mr. Kumar holds an MBA from SP Jain, and it is an absolute honor to welcome you to this panel, sir. So next panelist will be introduced by Krishna Priya.
Thank you, Sarvesh. Now, coming to the final member of our panel, Mr. Sachin Punekar from Reliance Industries Limited. Mr. Punekar is currently heading strategic initiatives for group manufacturing services of RIL's oil-to-chemical manufacturing business. He is a chemical engineer with 30 plus years of rich experience in the industry and 25 plus years with Reliance Industries. He has also been the site president of the DT refinery and the petrochemical complex, which is one of the largest refineries in the world. Sir, it has always been delightful hearing from you, and it gives me immense pleasure to welcome you to today's panel. Further, today's discussion will be moderated by our very own professor, Mr. Kailash Chaudhary. He is currently working as an assistant professor in the operations management and quantitative techniques area at IIM Shillong and holds a PhD from BITS Pilani. His interests lie in the domain of green supply chain management, life cycle assessment, lean manufacturing, and has published around 10 international journals in this field. In 2015, he was entitled with the DAAD Germany Fellowship to work on the 3 Cycles project. Further, he was also the recipient of the UGC JRF Fellowship. Currently, he is working on a United Nations-sponsored research project on future lifestyles. Thank you, sir, for joining us in today's session. Moving on to today's agenda, the operations in the supply chain environment scarcely resembles that of 10 years ago, given the better supply chain management methodologies and continued technological interpretations. The discussion today aims to cover the new business strategies, technological integration, operational and supply chain resilience strategies in the previous decade, and what we might expect in the future. I would now like to invite Kailash sir to take forward the discussion. So please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Krishna Priya. And first of all, I'd like to welcome all the esteemed guests and panelists who have a very rich experience. It's my privilege today that I'm able to interact with you, sir. And I'd like to thank the Opera Club for that they give me an opportunity to interact with you all. And very vast experience as in the introduction also, and I have the document with me with your introduction. So greetings from IIM Shillong and very warm welcome first of all. So first we'll divide a session like this that initially I'll just float some questions like an introduction question that related to the topic. The topic is disruptive technologies. So what are the disruptive technologies you guys have observed in last 1 decade, and how you see the future, that in future these are the technologies which will be a disruptive, and we have to make a supply chain resilient to some extent to cope up with these changes what we are observing right now in the manufacturing sector specifically, and how we can just make a robust supply chain. So initial remarks on this topic first from each and everyone, and then we just open the platform for discussion for various other questions like related to the COVID or the newer technologies available. And we'll go step by step, and the last part of the session will be ended up with the question and answer round from the students. So the audience, most of them are PGP student, postgraduate program student, which is a 2-year MBA program we offered at IIM Shillong, and other students are from PGPX and MBAB, which are basically experienced industry professional we take as a intake in these programs. It's a 1-year program for PGPX and 2-year off-campus program MBAB we offer to the students. So some of the students belong to these program also, and few maybe belong to the PhD program also. So first of all, I'd like to start with Mr. Amol Nagar, that what are the various technological changes he observed in his industrial sector in last 10 years, and how he see the future of his industry in next decade. So Amol sir, please.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here today. And first of all, thanks, Dr. Kailash, for giving me opportunity. And again, if I just think last 22 years since I came out of I would call my first learning cycle, finishing my education and joining the industry. And if I look at till today, I would say the whole paradigm has shifted. And I would say in last couple of years more so, wherein we have started looking this whole digital transformation and supply chain resilience through a different lens altogether. If I just go back 10 or 15 years ago when I started my career, the whole emphasis was around how you are driving the efficiencies, how you are driving the lower cost, how you are driving basically small improvements. And again, I started my career with Maruti. So that is where those were the things of the talk of the town, how you are improving the productivity, how you are doing more with less. But if I look at in the current context, last 2 to 3 years or maybe 5 years, where we started thinking about more predictability, because everybody wanted that we should be more predictable and we should be able to bring up the value for the customer. And again, 3 key drivers I have seen in the industry, which were like always we started looking more and more, is that how can we improve our overall performance? How can we create value for shareholder and for your customers? And how can we enhance the overall customer experience? And that is where this pandemic hit. And then we started thinking more in terms of supply chain resilience. How can we move from a just low cost sourcing or a low cost supply chain model? How can we look at how can we reduce the complexity? And how can we reduce the uncertainty in the entire supply chain world? And the whole importance of the supply chain in the business environment, which was maybe not at the first place, but last 3 years definitely taught us that how we need to think about it. And that is basically pushing our boundaries to accelerate the whole digital transformation. I think that is where the way I think about it. And again, in the today's environment, digital acceptance is the new norm. I'm sure starting from ordering the food or tracking your orders on the on the e-commerce site, or seeing a doctor online, sharing your reports online, and getting the diagnostic and treatment online. And that is where I would say that the same thing is applicable to us in the supply chain environment. All my fellow panelists will agree that one of the biggest challenge for supply chain or the operation always been, and still today, is that how you are advancing the technology or using the technology to track and trace different elements of your supply chain. That was the biggest thing. And now, with that trace and track, how can you be more predictable? I think that is the basic theme of this digital transformation which is happening. And in that scenario, I would say a couple of things which I look as a way forward when we talk about next 10 to 15 years. And I think it is an ongoing activity where we are thinking in our context that how we can automate, how we can use the technology which can assist us, and how can we augment it. If I just further go and look at each of this element, again, we are looking at that what are the lower value added tasks where we can automate, we can reduce or remove human element from it. And we can use the technologies like chatbots or robotics process automation. So that some of this we can automate. The next stage is assist. We are looking at some of the tools like AGVs, drones, or robotics, which can assist to remove humans from some of the tough tasks or hazardous situation, where we can put robotics, we can use IoTs and the sensors, we can pick up the data, and we can remove human from those mundane activity, and we can utilize that human power to do some of the high value-added activity and decision making. And last one is full augmentation, using the technology where we can look at some of the latest tool, maybe artificial intelligence or machine learning, where we can collect and analyze the complex data and automate the routine supply chain task. And again, that can help us to take some of the strategic decisions. And definitely, when we do that, there is a huge need to think about that how the role of human being will be changing with the technologies what we're going to adopt. And the whole upskilling of our employee in this digital age is essential for us to be resilient. So that is the way at a high level I see where we are going, or where we started from and where we are going.
Thank you, Mr. Amol, for your experience sharing that you started with the efficiency in the processes. Now you guys are shifting to the digital transformation, which is basically a industry 4.0, what we normally teach in operation management, that the fourth industrial revolution happened, and the third is more like automation, and then now the machine will talk with each other, and the fourth industrial revolution is going in the direction of IoT. So that's the change we observed in academia also, that very much aligned to the industries, that we are now also shifting with our subjects in elective that shifting towards the digital transformation. Thank you so much for that. Next, I'd like to invite Sachin Punerkar, that if he, Mr. Sachin Punerkar, so if he can share his experience in the last decade, what he observed as a disruptive technology, or what are the things which are new and going to impact in future also, because this pandemic really changed the things a lot, and the manufacturing, what we observe is the most impacted sector due to this pandemic. So how we are getting ready for the next or any similar kind of situation if the manufacturing industry observe in future. So how manufacturing industries are like getting ready for the future, that if the new disruption we observe, then we will not be impacted that much in future. So if you can share your thoughts, sir.
Yeah, sure, Kailash. Thank you, Kailash, for giving this opportunity, and also the IIM Shillong. In my view, disruption, we should not keep only limited to the technology. Disruption could be in any form. It could be technological, it could be a geopolitical, it could be like climate changes, the global warming, the pandemic, what came up. It was a big disruptions, like your transportation fuels. The demand came down by almost 30%. It has never happened in the world prior to this. So disruption for any business, any industry could be anything. And as a business, as an industry, we should be always ready for any kind of disruptions. And what strategy we deploy at our organization is basically a future works planning, where you you emphasize the various scenarios and you plan for it. Of course, we never went into so much detail of a pandemic. Yes, we had some plans if this sort of things happens, a pandemic sort of thing, but it was never for the pandemic. And we went to the tremendous turmoil, but we were resilient enough to bounce back and sustain our operations. And I'm happy to inform that Reliance Refinery has processed the highest crude in 2021. And the COVID wave is on the wave. Now the agility to adopt the changes is the key. I'll give an example. The ATF demand has came down to 0. We make a huge ATF. It's the world's largest refinery. We process 1.4 million barrels of oil every day. And when the pandemic hit, all aviation's flights stopped, everything grounded. So demand came down. Then how do you sustain your refinery operations? Because you'll be producing a certain aviation turbine fuel. And then we find out the different options. How do we fire it into the gas turbines? How do you fire it into the various other process heaters? And how do we make ATF crack and make into the different other products? So quickly adjusting to the various operating conditions, mobilizing certain hardware changes and all, and you can really come up. When the oxygen demand in the country went up, and we had a facility in Jamnagar to produce the oxygen, medical oxygen, and we ramp up the capacity from almost 10-15 ton per day to 1,000-1,200 ton per day and supplied to all over the nation. So the resilience and preparing the scenario planning is extremely key for managing any disruption. Coming specifically to the digital transformation, let me tell you, and as the Amol also said, it's not incremental. It's not really, if anybody we are
Mr. Sachin?
There is some issue in the network.
Yeah. Yes, Sarvesh, can you connect with them?
Yes, sir. I'll try to reach them. Till that time, we can take discussion forward.
Okay. I'll just wait for a few seconds and then. Yeah. So I think we lost him. So so I like to take the opportunity to invite our next guest, Mr. Ravi Kumar. Meanwhile, I hope Mr. Sachin will get back in this meeting. And Mr. Ravi Kumar, head of supply chain in Johnson & Johnson Pharma. So if you, sir, like can share your experience, the technological change or disruption in technology in last decade in pharma industry specifically, like to share your thoughts, please.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Kailash sir, for inviting us, and also the entire IIM Shillong participants. Thank you for your active participation on a weekend. I have worked in the healthcare sector for Johnson & Johnson. So I've worked in medical devices as well as pharmaceuticals. So I'll take both healthcare units. Med devices are essentially knee implants, hip implants. Those kind of products are called med devices. Pharmaceuticals, you know, I did work in Johnson & Johnson consumer as well, had the privilege of working in all the three sectors. So I'll try to see, and our consumer sector is called consumer health. So it's all about healthcare, which we are looking at, and what is changing there. So we are definitely moving towards what we call zeronomics. What is zeronomics is essentially we are looking at much more predictability of any disease much faster in the stage where we know it today, and it is evolving for all the sectors, including med devices and pharmaceuticals. I'll give you an example. 2 years back, we launched a product called CAR T. CAR T is essentially a product where we take blood samples from the patient. We then get it customized. There are T cells and there are different cells from a technology perspective. We get it customized, and then we boot the system from a patient perspective with the same cells. So as you know, every patient is very different. If you put a CAR T kind of a technology, what happens is each different patient gets different kind of treatment. So it is so customized to that extent. Obviously, it is right now available in developed markets, but that's the scheme of things which we are talking about, where every patient is being treated differently through a customized solution, which perfectly works for him or her. Similarly, if you look at Apple Watch, today it's very common to have that ECG and everything being talked about, but that has changed for all of you, probably the youngsters. Having an Apple Watch with an ECG on your watch already is something which is very common for you. However, when it started probably 5 years back, it was not even thought of. I'll also talk about technologies which is really bringing in the revolution in the hospital supply chain. So the very first thing which you have seen is this entire e-commerce space which has changed, but that has bring in a lot more on the logistics part and overall delivery of the product part. What is also changing, and being a party to a few discussions with Apollo and everyone, I'm just talking about India, they are looking at RFID technology. When I first met them in 2019, they said, give us an affordable RFID technology. And what we are working on an RFID technology is where you do have a label, you can't see any difference in that label. However, inside there is a RFID tag as well. Myntra on the e-commerce side is using the same technology. The same technology, we want to use it for med devices and also for oncology and other products. So all this, if you look at from an examples perspective, we are moving towards the concept called zeronomics, where we essentially want to predict faster, treat faster, and treat best to the patient outcome. And whatever technology which you see here, and now if you go around any major city hospitals, you'll see a lot of robotic surgery coming in. Future is robots plus humans for sure. Doctors will be always there. I'm very sure about it. However, they will be treating many more patients and much more with a lot more accuracy compared to what they are probably able to do today with the technology on hand. The second piece, which is definitely changing, is what Sachin and Amol also talked about, is the exponentiality. So it's not an incremental piece, it's an exponential piece. And whoever thinks that it is not going to be like this has never thought of a very small company which is just selling books in 10, 15 years became the highest ever shareholder value we are talking about after probably Apple. But the kind of transformation it has bring in terms of customer centricity, in terms of how a delivery of any product from a customer perspective is run has changed. And that will come to everything, including our medicine deliveries, including our healthcare needs. And even for India, that change, as you can see, will happen a lot. So a lot of disruptive technology, I think both Sachin and Amol talked about is on the industry 4.0, but all these robotics which we are talking about, and we recently, as you may have heard, Adverb technology has been invested by none other than Reliance. And those are the kind of changes which are happening in the industry where we do see robots working along with us for things which are repetitive and requires a better outcome in terms of accuracy and other specifications. So this is definitely a change which is going to happen. What we are definitely going to do is we are becoming more and more decision makers. We will definitely have a chair. You really don't have to travel a lot. Everything like this will be displayed, not even on a physical laptop. Probably it will be holograms or something very, very, even your keyboard will be all virtual, and you'll be picking up what? You're picking up the decision making. So most of us will become something like what happens in the air traffic control. That is again something which where everybody looks at every flight and all that and takes split second decisions. You essentially in future, which is definitely not even more than 5 years to me at least, where we are reaching there, is everything is available to you. What you guys are doing as an tech entrepreneur or even a company employee is to take decisions. You're not really gathering data. You're not doing much analysis there. All that will be available. There will be profitable trade-offs or whatever trade-offs. It can be non-profitable, profitable, but trade-offs has to be managed by you. And that is what you need to gear up for as you go along. So as long as you're able to see those trade-offs, and those trade-offs will multiply. There will be environmental versus uh, uh, faster delivery trade-off. Like if you send it by an airplane, it's faster, but environmentally probably not very good. So all those trade-offs will come your way, and how you are taking a decision to pick up the right trade-off is what you will excel at as we go along. Rest all most likely will be available through data, AI, blockchain, ML, whatever technology you talk about. And there'll be definitely a lot of decentralization. Whatever we talk about crypto, there'll be definitely a lot of decentralization of data. There'll be no more such banks who hold so much power. There'll be no more governments probably who will hold so much power. So power won't be centralized that way. There'll be a lot of democratization in terms of with a lot of safety net available. Today I go to a bank because there is a safety net available, and that's why I only go to probably a SBI. But tomorrow with blockchain, you don't need that safety net. You don't need that branding. You have that particular safety net available to you with help of encryption itself. So that democratization we need to live with, and that also makes us a little vulnerable. What we will do with people who are not going to be skilled with it. So that's the question probably we need to solve. So I'll end up here, but there is a lot more happening on the exponential part rather than incremental part.
Thank you, Mr. Ravi Kumar. It's really interesting to see that how digital transformation is adopted by the pharma industry also. I like to take the opportunity again to invite Mr. Sachin because of that little bit poor connectivity. We lost him in between. So, Mr. Sachin, if you like to complete your address.
Yeah, sure. Sorry for the interruptions. But yes, I agree with Ravi. It's phenomenal things are happening. There are a lot of undercurrents, and we have to really revalidate our business models or operating models, the way we operate, the way we conduct our business. And see, the value creation is the heart of the business model. So how do we continuously keeps on refining our keeps our assumptions revalidated with what's happening in globally, and revalidate our assumptions are right or need to be some changes, and adopt the technology the which suits your business model, your operating model the most. It's not that everybody is doing IoT, so you start doing IoT, or everybody is talking about artificial intelligence, you start doing artificial intelligence. It's not the way. What suits your operating model of your business model, adopt those technologies and get the cloud of those technologies. And I think that's and it is very exciting too. And all youngsters are so quick and so fast, and it's tremendous learning from the young students and our young employees also. That's all, Kailash. I can chip on later on if required. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I'd like to invite uh, another panelist from the pharma industry, Dr. Ravi Prakash Mathur, if he can share some experience that what are the changes. Like recently Mr. Ravi Kumar talked about that, how the RFIDs, how the what is the geronomics concept, and how they are just implementing a digital transformation in their industries in the recent parts, and how he see the future also. So what are the similarity or dissimilarity you are observing in your supply chain or industry, sir? Dr. Ravi Prakash Mathur, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kailash, and thank you, Team Opera, for IIM Shillong for inviting us here. So I think, a lot of ideas have already been articulated by the panelists. So I'm just like a little bit struggling to, figure out what to say now after all the entire landscape of the spectrum has already been covered. So let me try to zoom out a little bit. Let me just try to step back and talk a little bit about basics and see if try to add a different dimension to the entire discussion. Okay, so I have a perspective, and that is that disruption per se is not caused by technology. Okay, disruption is caused by the idea. Disruption is caused by the concept. Disruption is caused by the design in which you are putting that technology. Okay, and I will just quote a very simple example. The touch screen, which is like so common that we use every day nowadays, the graphic user interface that we are all dependent on, whether this is the laptops or your phones or your ATMs, they were in the lab for more than a decade. Okay, it took a deployment from somebody like Steve Jobs to take it out and put it into a PC. Okay, so just the technology is not the solution. It is the context, it is the business context or the user context that you're giving to the technology that creates the disruption. Let me give you one more example, okay? And here what I'm saying is that disruption or innovation in technology is very closely interwoven with the design, okay? When you rearrange things in your operating model, whether it is within technology or in the business model, that is when disruption happens, okay? I don't know how many students over here know how the computers used to be in the 1980s or 1970s. Much before the personal computer came on the scene, we used to work on mainframes. Okay, so it's only big organizations who had those mainframes, and then there was a client on which you used to work. That was the way business was used to operate. Only when you reconfigured the entire thing, put the computing that was earlier on the mainframe, put the computing on the desktop, okay? Only when you put the memory that was there on the earlier on the mainframe, you put it on the personal computer, that caused a disruption. That was not an incremental, or that was not even an exponential change in technology per se, but it was a change in which you deployed it, the way you arranged your processes. I'll take just one more example. In the 90s, a lot of us over here would have been, has started using the computer at that point of time. there used to be only one browser. Okay. And that browser used to be Netscape. And it had its bugs, but amongst all the other browsers, this was a browser that was over there. And I'm talking of an era where you did not have Google the way it is right now. You did not have Explorer. You did not have Edge, everything. Okay. But that caused the disruption. Why? Because it was a threat to the existing technology, which was your desktop. Now, how was it a threat to the desktop? Because earlier, if you were to go to an IP address, you had no way to do it unless you had that IP address and you could launch it from your desktop. If you wanted to launch an application, you had to launch it from your desktop. In fact, it was said that the most expensive piece of real estate in the world is your desktop, because you can't launch an application. It's only when browsers came into the picture, you were able to launch programs, launch applications from somewhere which was not on your computer. Okay, so the point is that it is how you are using technology to rearrange things that will cause a disruption. Okay, and the most common phenomena that we are all witnessing here right now is, and we all of us call it by Uberization. That is a technology which is simple technology of a digital platform, right? Now you started with Uber. Now everybody is on a digital platform. Okay, every business wants a digital platform. A bank has a digital platform. Now, this is what will cause a disruption. So similar design changes that you see in technology, similar design changes when you change the operating model of the business, when you change the business model per se, that causes the disruption. I mean, right now, we have just concluded the first season of Shark Tank, and you've seen a lot of entrepreneurs that are coming with ideas. Everybody says, "Oh, this is my idea." So the value is there in the idea. The value is there in how you're designing things, and backed up by the brute force of capital, you will be able to create a disruption. Science per se disrupting does happen. Like example, you have the Moore's law. You had every 2 years the number of transistors that go into a silicon chip, they were doubling. Okay, so those kind of interventions are there. Or the touchscreen per se, that was a technology disruption, but within itself that will not. So I think what will create more disruption and more value to be put on the table, more value to be unlocked, is if you are able to create an ecosystem where these ideas are tested, where those value discoveries of those ideas can be done, the risky assumptions in the business model can be tested. And so this is what the trend already, and we are seeing it all around us. So I think this is what will happen, and this is also what all of us over here are there to encourage and see it get onto the exponential growth, route. So now those are my comments, Professor Kailash. Thank you for that question.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi Prakash. It's really nice to hear that now the technology is not like always every technology will be helpful to every industry. It's just like you should have the concept of redesign your operation, your processes. So technology can be as a supporting element into that. So it's really an enlightening thought. And now next I like to invite our last panelist, Dr. Rajesh, Mr. Rajesh Sharma, Director of Manufacturing Excellence Asia, Whirlpool India. Please, sir, your take on these, what are the changes and the future changes you'll see in your sector specifically.
First of all, big thanks for inviting us. My thanks goes to the complete fraternity of IIM Shillong. And I'm really interested sitting side by side, not in physical, but in virtual, with all the elite panelists today. And more I am enlightened today is the diversification of the areas from where the panelists are coming. It is really giving me a unique opportunity to understand things from different industries. So it is not only a matter of opportunity, a great interaction for IIM Shillong. It is I'm seeing this discussion a great takeaway for me also. Thanks a lot. Thanks to you. Thanks to all the panelists today. As Mr. Ravi had told, that being the fourth in the line of sharing his views, he had limited opportunity or limited views because already the other panelists, they had already shared things which are very much common across all the industries. So I'm also feeling, being the last panelist today, I'm finding short of what are the other things I have to share because everything is already covered. Nevertheless, uh, based on my past experience, the field in which I am into, I will certainly like to share something which will certainly add values and will be in sync with what our other panelists today do. So if I see life, obviously having been into this industry since last 25, 26 years, so I got the opportunity to start my career when everything was so much simple, so much normal, so much manual. The process where the requirement, the expectation from customers, expectation from market, expectation from government, expectation from regulations, they were so simple. If I see 10 years back, what were the major difference what we are seeing today? Starting with few examples from the point of view of connectivity, from the point of view of simple connection by which we interact, telecom, I see it was 2G. And 2G, we know what exactly it's capable of. If I see from the point of view of further mobile application, the type of mobile that we used to have, we could only do calling, messaging, little bit of taking pictures, not much of an activity we could have done on apps. And when I talk about apps, I mean to say bringing everything in your hand, close to you, connectivity getting at a very high level. Third area where I feel is that means with the passage of time and with lots of changes happening into the economy, with lots of new policies coming, one thing that has really taken a good pace is the globalization part. Uh, 10 years, 12 years back, when I was working in that industry, certainly means it was mainly for the local markets, the domestic market. So whatever we inputted into our system, into our processes, it was from the point of view of customers, which are from a small base, a small local area. Fourth point that I see is from the point of view of the complexity that is generated from the external environment. So as I told you earlier also, things were simple, regulations were less. As a result, whatever we planned at that time, it was directly linked to the situation that was there during that period, 10 years, 12 years back. So whatever we do, whatever we saw 10 years back and whatever we are doing today or seeing today also, there is one common point, and that common point is issues and problems. So my experience is there were issues that at that time also, there are issues today also. But it's only the approach that we are taking to solve those issues is now changing. 10 years, 15 years back, we didn't had so much high technology. So whatever the countermeasures or the root cause analysis when we used to do and we used to take the tool which will solve those problems, they were mainly from the point of view of a limited area from where we can adapt into the system. But today, I see that there is a plethora of tools which is available, which can help our concerns, which can help our issues that are there into our industries, into our processes. And here, if I compare the amount of things that has changed due to the opening of technology with aided by the digital inclusiveness, I feel that means today things has come to that level where the areas where we were struggling to take appropriate countermeasures back then, today we have technologies, today we have tools. I see all these new things that is coming into our environment just as a tool. as an enabler, which is helping us to take and do things more in an efficient way, more in a concrete way, which is giving a fast result, taking our activities in a way that it is becoming more and more agile. So this is one of the biggest change that I'm seeing. What it was there 10 years behind, and what we are experiencing today, and what we will be experiencing going ahead. So three main areas where more I feel that there has been a big shift into the approach is certainly. Number one is, I will rate this from the point of view of numbering. Number one is mindset. The mindset that we used to have 10 years back, because we were working in a limited environment, and the mindset that we are seeing today and we are working with today, I see a good amount of change. Means when we used to plan 10 years back, I used to plan keeping things into mind which were available at that time. Very limited technology, very limited availability. But today, when I plan anything for anything, I have so many other options available in front of me. It helps my planning very easy to what level and to what extent I can go, and then seeing my capabilities, seeing my resources that I've got, I can do the plan. If I've got money, I can go for hi-fi automation. If I don't have that much money, I can go for low cost automation. If I still don't have any, so what I'm trying to say is that now we have got huge amount of options which we can explore to ultimately meet our requirement for which activities we are doing our businesses. Businesses will keep on growing. The demand of business is changing like ever before. Expectations are rising at a exponential level, and this expectation is not within the manufacturing or any industrial or the business requirement, but the requirement that is coming from the customers. This has gone a huge change. The mindset of, if the mindset of the business is changing over the period of time, the mindset of customer has also changed. And one of the biggest pressure that we are today getting is the when we start going into the market to explore exactly what they want, and then we see what we can make there, we at times we find that there are gaps. And this gap is basically because sometimes we did feel in our industry that we fail to anticipate in advance, just like what we fail to anticipate COVID today. In the similar way, this industry also didn't basically think that the changes will be so fast and so different. So, but now after working in last 2 years in this pandemic environment, this has given a huge thrust to the industry in which I am into. I've seen the amount of decisions that is being taken. It has become so fast that previously the decision that we used to do in say months, today we are doing it in weeks. And going forward, we will be doing it in days also. This is one of the biggest change that is happening. All in all, if I sum up, I will only say that slowly and slowly, we used to work in a reactive environment where we used to see the result once we did the activity. But now we have started shifting ourselves towards proactive mindset, proactive setting, so that we know in advance before we do something for today or tomorrow. So this has been a major shift. COVID is there. This is not, this is, even though it is for the first time for us, but certainly we are gearing up that tomorrow, if something else more devastating, more severe than COVID, it comes, we should be ready for that today. And our planning has taken that into account, so that even though today COVID is there, it will go, but we are not stopping our thinking. We are not stopping our thought process. We are not stopping of bringing in those additional advanced technology today, so that at least my business should not suffer going down the line in next 4 to 5 years, or even if some other severe calamity or some pandemic comes, we should not be affected at all. So with that mindset, today we have started working, and all in all, this is not only helping us to make our environment. The biggest plus point that is coming out of this is the skilling up of the people. And this, I find, that means one of the biggest fruit that COVID is going to give us is, means our people are becoming more smarter, our people are becoming more adaptive. At the same time, our people are becoming more skilled to meet these challenges which might come in the future. So this was what I felt like I can add upon to all the points that already has been added by the my earlier panelists. So all in all, this was my say for today's this for this group.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Mr. Rajesh Sharma. So, as we discussed after the first round, what I hear from all the panelists, that we are like we have experience, people from the aviation, we have the people from refinery, pharma, and the electrical electronic equipment manufacturer. So all of you talk about most like adoption of the technologies, digital transformation of the operation and the processes, and but more like on the design perspective, that how they can benefit you, then only you can adopt. And also the globalization and the how the COVID teach us to adopt a proactive approach rather than a reactive approach. So I'll take it as a base and just shoot a next question, that okay, COVID changed the way you think, that you became more proactive because the changes are happening so fast and the manufacturing sector is impacted because of this pandemic. So I like to see the next step in the technology, that we when I was pursuing my PhD, we used to learn how the 3D printers are working, how the different filaments we can use in them for the manufacturing. So I like to know that how the additive manufacturing and 3D printers are adopted in these various sectors, and how they are helping to just improve the overall production systems in the organization. So anybody, if like to just give us some thought on that.
Sure, Dr. Kailash. Let me pick it up, because for aviation world, and I think we are one of the front runner in terms of using and adopting this technology and commercializing it, wherein we are among the first company to use the 3D printed part in the hot zone of an aircraft engine. And some of the complex fuel nozzles, some of the hot section parts we productionized and started using into the commercial airliners, maybe on our LEAP engine or our catalyst engine for the turboprop. And this technology is definitely helping us to improve the efficiencies, reduce the weight, and optimize the cost, and is helping us, like whatever my designer or my design and validation teams are thinking, this technology is helping us to produce those parts with less complexity and much faster prototyping. If I look at the latest engine, which is a catalyst engine, a turboprop we launched, and it is like now in the commercial flight, there are many parts which are now 3D printed compared to what it was earlier. And that way, it is really revolutionizing the entire aviation side, where it was very difficult for create some of the parts because there was the technology barrier in terms of either you to go to the casting or you to go to the complex machining or different processes, wherein while the technology is maturing in the 3D printing side of it, you can pretty much print many of those parts, and and then we are validating those. So definitely it is helping us, and we are like commercializing this, and we have this company Concept Laser, where we are developing the different material in the product in terms of the, because again, you can imagine one side is design and just printing, but on the other side, there's a huge technology in terms of the kind of metal powder you need to develop and control the quality of that powder, which can be like used for 3D printing.
Like apart from PLA plastics and all that, now we are shifting to the metallic powder to print. That's what. And now, sir, if you can enlighten that how this additive manufacturing is helping in the supply chain issues or helping in the digital transformation of the whole supply chain. So if you can just enlighten.
So, Kailas, and I would just like to add on what just Amol talked about. In aviation industry, obviously, it's a big thing because there the accuracy and safety is so much needed. The same is in the healthcare as well. When we look at these knee implants, hip implants, that entire industry is very capital and supply chain intensive. That means you send doctor a bouquet of, let's say, flowers, and doctor has the choice to pick up one flower and put the implant into the patient's body, which is very, very customized for that particular person based on their age group, bone density, and all that. So not getting into that complexity, it's a heavily invested as well as complex supply chain. Now, if you look at 3D printing, and we have a 3D printing center of excellence for Johnson & Johnson in US, where we are working on technologies where the instruments, which is essentially required in the business, is being printed at the time just before doctor goes for the surgery. Similarly, even the hip implants, knee implants, we are able to produce just before the surgery. So that's the kind of technology it's getting invested. Obviously, it's not commercialized yet, but a lot of effort and a lot of scientific, I would say, endeavor has been already taken to make it a reality very soon. So to your point, it's becoming real. It's like that Kalpavriksha thing. Obviously, it doesn't come free. So it's like that Kalpavriksha, you demand something and it comes out, is going to be there, whether it is healthcare, aviation, or CPG, consumer products group, or anything which we are looking at. So yeah, just to add to what Amol pointed out on 3D printing.
Yeah, Mr. Rajesh.
Yeah, this is one area, obviously, it is gaining pace. If I see in my industry, automotive or white goods. Normally, this is coming into role play in two broad areas. One, in this industry, normally it takes nearly about 2 years time to practically develop a product starting from scratch till it comes into the process of industrialization. So during the course of development, slowly and slowly over the period of time, I'm seeing the application of 3D printing has certainly increased. This is predominantly giving us the benefit from the point of view of lead times. Initially, the things that were made it in a longer time, now with the help of 3D printing, it is certainly shortened by a great amount. And this is helping the industry in the way that their development time is coming down. Even though it has not come down drastically, but there is a scope that certainly going down further with more advancement and with more acceptability of this 3D printing, it will certainly lead to a good amount of decrease in the development time, and so a lead time to bring the product to the market will certainly shorten. This is one area that is certainly happening, but it needs to happen at a larger scale. But due to the scalability and due to the availability of the right printer, right material which is required to be used, and at some time cost also, it is coming as a barrier for the organizations. But nevertheless, with times coming, it should simplify and it should be readily available. Number two, the second area where I'm seeing that slowly it is gaining more traction into the arena is in the area of manufacturing also. Recently, I got an opportunity to visit one big automobile company, and I was surprised to see what they have done is that at the center of their location, they have put 4 or 5 3D printers of different makes and different sizes at the center of their manufacturing facility. And the reason for doing that is they want the people who is working on the line to develop their ideas and come and do the printing and take back to their stations, so that that operator, he is implementing the right idea with the right concept, and then with the help of innovationness also. And when I talked with the shop in charge of that area, I came to know that since the time they implemented this concept idea of implementing a printer on the shop floor, the number of kaizens, the number of ideas, the number of suggestions, it has gone up drastically from the manufacturing people. And this has not only led to generation of ideas, it is changing again the mindset of the people who is working on the shop floor. It is decreasing the manufacturing cost of that. It is increasing the quality over there. So it's giving a whole gamut of advantage, a whole gamut of benefit to the people over there. I was really so happy to see that way of things, that it can become an example, it can become a role model for other industries also. So what I'm trying to say over here is, it's not only now limited only for the area of development at an early stage, but yes, it can be if it is done in the right way, it can be utilized in any space, any arena, any operations, and all in all, at the end, it will be the people who are working close towards it, they are going to be benefited. So this is taking shape, and it will certainly grow by a huge margin. At least down the line from now on, 5 to 6 years of time, we will see a revolution where lot many things which were dependent on external suppliers, maybe it will be made in-house with the help of these printers going down the line.
Yeah, so that's what we have observed as a scholar. Initially, when I started my PhD, there is a close, gated, isolated chamber type of printers there. Only PLA they print, and there's supporting element, supporting material also we have to use in the header, and header get jammed most of the time. Then there is a enhancement in the technology, and the single material we can print with the different colors. And now the size of the printers are getting like big day by day, and the most of the newer material are coming. And so that's why I was thinking that if like previously our biology department was using them to make that arms and all these things. So I was thinking that how they are they adopted enough in like aviation sector. I'm also said, and Rajesh has mentioned that they are we are adopting these technologies. So now next is that what we observed during this pandemic, that the first wave really disturbed the manufacturing sector. Now in the second and third wave, the impact was not that much. But how you guys see the future if this something like the pandemic situation we observe in future, are we going to be ready as a manufacturing organization or the pharma industry, a refinery, the vast experience panelists we have? So how we are ready, or we will be less disturbed in future by these sudden disruptions? So what are the key learnings in these 2 years for you as a manager?
So let me take the opportunity to start this time, if you
Yes,
all
please.
allow. So this is a fantastic thing. Certainly, COVID has been a very good teacher to us. So here again, I will say there are two things. What setup we have got, slowly and slowly, we have started to modify the complete setup in such a way that at least tomorrow, the issue of the distance, the issue of sanitization, issue of having mask, and so that they don't come closer, so they can be taken into aspect. Then For the thing that is going to come tomorrow, we have already started into a planning phase to go for a technology and go for a system which will help us to cope up these activities. So when we identify our processes, when we see in the processes, if there is any process today which is totally manual and going by this, if tomorrow again something hits, we are affected due to this manual activity. We are not taking any chance. We are trying to automate it in such a way that tomorrow at least the man density that is required to be there in case of calamities, it should be met. Just for example, before the COVID, in our industry, the assembly line that we used to have, we have different stations that are there. On an average, there are about the man density is nearly about 3 per stations. Now, during COVID, we felt that means we cannot go ahead and we cannot maintain that distance that is required for the operator to do the job. So we had to decrease the man density from 3. We have come down to somewhere around close to 2.3. And going forward, we see that we have to make our system, we have to make our industry in such a way that the man density, we have to bring it to close to 0.6, which is there at global level. So these things will help us in mitigating any type of future challenges that come. And obviously, this cannot be done only by reorientation or rearranging our processes. We'll have to implement lots of tools that is required to be done. So all the appropriate tools which are there, we are thinking about that. We are implementing into our system, and at least three years down the line, we feel that if something of COVID attacks us, we will be not at all affected due to that. This is our vision. This is how we are taking our strategy. We are taking our planning, because this time we really got hit as far as business is concerned. Our business came down drastically down due to this. We should not be in the same position 3 years, 4 years down the line. And in this way, we are planning our activities so that we will at least not get affected. So all the new facility, these will be highly automated. It will be highly productive. At the same time, it will be completely resilient, I will say over here, for all this type of attacks.
Yeah. So, Mr. Sachin, if you like to take on this question, like how refinery sector will be ready for next pandemic, if I ask.
Yeah, see, there are a couple of things. One thing is on your demand side, there will be a demand destruction. So how do you manage your product mix so that you cut down on your transportation fuels and you maximize on the polymers, petrochemicals? So those strategies are in place, those plans are in this place. So we have built those flexibilities and we can use those flexibilities and quickly move upon the different product mix. So can we minimize impacts onto the whatever the demand goes down, we can minimize those productions. So those flexibilities has been built. Another challenge comes up is how do you keep your manufacturing plants operating? It's various sites, and so how do you keep it operating safely? So a lot of testing and all protocols are now everywhere. It is a well established. So, and we have created our own infrastructure to manage all those testing requirements and protecting the peoples and that. So those are all in place. So particularly with respect to the similar type of disruption due to the COVID pandemic, we don't see much of the challenging in managing those disruptions. But going forward, now there is a big energy transition is taking place. So now from the fossil-based fuels to the renewable energy. So most our focus is on transiting from fossil-based fuels to the renewable energy. So we are strategizing on that. The plans are ready. So going forward, that will be one major change coming up. And so that's the real challenge. And that's how the oil to chemical, how do we convert each entire barrel of oil into the chemicals rather than the fuels? So that's the one thing which is challenging, and we have the very, very strong, credible plans in place to make that transition whenever it kicks off. We are ready to quickly move on that.
Yeah.
Thank
I'll
you.
take this as a note to just shift to the next question. If I start with Dr. Ravi Prakash, that how you are incorporating the sustainability issues or sustainability practices in your like pharma manufacturing organization. Like because now we see that India is setting target, or every nation is setting a target to just reduce their carbon emission in the future, and we set the target that we reduce the intensity by 45% by 2030. So how your organization is moving in this direction, sir?
So thanks for that question. And I mean, it's timely because just I think yesterday or day before we released the latest sustainability report. And here at Dr. Reddy's since 2004, we have been, publishing a sustainability report. And we had in 2010, we had a vision for 2020. So sustainability for pharma manufacturing is a very big issue, and it is to be a part of your way of working. So I'll talk first from the supply chain perspective. Okay. CO2 emissions, since we are a global pharma company, and then we actually have to export our products globally. So we use a lot of air freight, and we also use a lot of sea freight. So one of the drivers that we do is make the shift from air freight to sea freight. So for example, if you look at the CO2 tonnage that is emitted if you use air cargo, say for the kilometers that you are flying, and then the carbon CO2 tonnage that you're emitting for sea cargo. So there's a 10 times difference. So what we do is we take a target year on year, how do you improve of the last year baseline, and how do you reduce your air freight dependence, and how do you reduce and shift more and more to this thing. So we have adopted the scope 3 standards for reduction of CO2 emission, and not only in our supply chain, also in our manufacturing. So I think that is part and parcel of the pharma manufacturing. And also on the supply chain, we were doing some studies on how your supply chain network design per se impacts your CO2 emission. So if you have more touch points, more number of touches to your product, if you're for the same leg, if you have multiple stops, then your CO2 emission is much higher. So also your network thinking, your supply chain design, from a pure logistics perspective or a pure distribution perspective, also you have to look at what your decisions are impacting CO2 emissions. Manufacturing, of course, you have to take those measures and ensure that year on year you're making impact on that front. Thank you for that question, Professor Kailash.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ravi Prakash. I'd like to take the opportunity to invite Amol, Mr. Amol on this, because the aviation sector is one of the polluting sector, and how we just now aviation sector is planning to reduce their greenhouse gas emission or CO2 emission in future.
So you know that aviation industry has been tasked with net zero carbon emission by 2050. And as a company, GE Aviation, we are committed to it. In fact, we have made a lot of advances in terms of hybrid engines. Recently, if you just go and do the Google, GE Aviation become #1 company to have the commercial flight run on the sustainable aviation fuel, 100% run by the United Airlines on our engines. Now, if I look at in the longer term, by 2030, we already announced that GE will be coming up with open fan configuration of the engine. Which will be like a new engine program with our joint venture partner Saffron and our company CFM, wherein we are launching a revolutionary innovation for sustainable engines, the RISE engine program, wherein we are going to reduce the carbon emission. So definitely we are committed to achieve both those two, and we started working on it. In fact, we are partnered with NASA and already did some of the tests around the hybrid engines. So there is a huge focus and the commitment from the company to be net zero by 2050.
So these hybrid engines are basically a mixture of like gasoline and the biofuel.
So there are hybrid engines where you have hydrogen power or electric power. Those are the kind of technology which is coming in.
Yeah. So I like to take the opportunity to invite Mr. Ravi Kumar also on this, that how pharma industries like adopting sustainability practices. Please.
I think in healthcare, one of, and I will not go on the advancement piece, very basic piece itself. The very first one is the electricity consumption. There is a huge electricity consumption which happens. So J&J is definitely committed to move to renewable energy completely. So that's one of the basic goals which we can adopt in any pharma industry, that whatever electricity consumption is happening, how we move from, let's say, fuel-based or something to renewable one. The second one is obviously carbon neutrality for our operations. So that's the second piece, an important piece. Not only the aviation, I believe, all other sectors, industries do emit a lot of carbon emissions, and the effects are seen. Like in Mumbai, I'm feeling winter, which I have never felt before this year. So whatever we become on do on carbon neutrality in a true sense is good, including from our households till obviously pharma or healthcare manufacturing. The last one is the emission reductions. Apart from the carbon, there are definitely other emissions also which we have been doing, especially in pharma industry, if you're talking about. And these three, if we are able to do create that culture within our employees, like let's say starting from my daughters to everyone, also feel that. So these are the 3-4 basic things which I think we should be doing, apart from the technological advances which Amol talked about, which itself will take, let's say, hydrogen powered fuel. Obviously, it has its own risk and challenge, but it will be literally changing the game even better than electrical vehicles. So that's what would be my submission: doing basic things right, which all of us know what should be done there. Taking aggressive targets there. That's all. Or what we call net zero emissions.
So, Mr. Rajesh, the biggest problem in this electrical and electronic equipment manufacture is the end of life management of whatever the waste we generate. So is the Whirlpool is planning something to better manage the end of life or the disassembly of these equipment what you manufacture?
Well, this is an activity, it is not industry driven, it has to be a government driven. Very recently, you must have heard that there is a clear-cut policy from government of India. It has come for scrapping of the automobiles. So in case of this white goods industry, uh, very recently there is a very strong drive from the government of India in the area of how the appliances can be optimized from the point of view of energy consumption. And whatever energy is being consumed today by the appliances today, you are going to see a drastic change in 2 or 3 years from now on, because a new regulation has come from BIS, which has mandated what should be the energy consumption as per the star rating that you see on a refrigerator or washing machine. Whatever number you are seeing over there, it is going to reduce by nearly about 25 to 30% going down the line. So that will certainly enhance this topic seriously. Right now, from the point of view of scrapping, today we don't have a very clear-cut direction from the government side also, that at the end of the life, what is required to be done and what it has to be done. It is too premature today, but yes, we are seeing that talks has already started, where how the treatment of the equipment will be done once it completes its life cycle. So normally the white goods, the average life cycle, if I see of a refrigerator, it is nearly about 10 years, 10 to 12 years. So post that, how it should be collected from the consumer, how it should be treated, how it should be dismantled, which is required to be scrapped, which is required to be reused, a comprehensive study as of now is being done. Very soon, we expect that a clear-cut guidelines, a clear-cut direction will come. And as I told you, this is not an industry activity. It has to be done along with the government. Whenever it is done, certainly means we as an industry will be wholeheartedly participating into it and supporting the government in all possible ways.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And now we are running out of the time, and continuously I am receiving messages from my students. So we have to wind it up now. So it's really enriching experience for all of us to interact with you all. And it's really nice to see the implementation of the digital transformation and the Internet of Things in the real industry scenario in the different sectors. Also, it's really enthusiastic to see that the sustainability practices also we are continuously adopting and thinking in that direction. So we will help to achieve the target of India, which is that zero emission by 2017 and 45% reduction in the intensity of our operations in terms of the carbon intensity. Now I like to hand it over to Rajul for the Q&A and like whatever the next in this session. Thank you,
sir. Thank you, and thank you to our distinguished panel for such an informative session. I'm sure our participants are eagerly waiting to ask the questions. So now the panel is open for question and answer. You can please raise your hand and ask questions. Yeah, Abhishek, you can go first.
So good afternoon to all our esteemed panelists, Kailash sir and my batchmates. So sir, my question is that if we look back, we find the general mindset that operation is all about manufacturing. But now we see that even in the e-commerce sector, operations is involved. So according to you, what are the kind of skill sets or technical ability that we as the aspirational leaders should work upon in the current scenario?
So I'll take that question, Abhishek, and again I'll take it from the first principles. Okay, and since you mentioned about your e-commerce, context of your question, I'll try to answer from that dimension. So I again reinstate from first principles. Supply chain or operations is all about design. It is nothing more than design. Okay, if you were to look at if you look at the automobile industry, I'm not from the automobile industry, but I've studied a little bit of it. If you see the evolution of the supply chain or the manufacturing technology in the automobile, it started with customized cars. Then, of course, you had the assembly line techniques where it was all about standardization. And then from after that, you had this the lean manufacturing philosophy, and that enabled you to diversify and create different kind of different kind of models and still manage the inventory. That is essentially what happened over there. So it is about how you are designing your flow. Ultimately, it boils back to how you are designing the flow. Now, if you look at the manufacturing space, a lot of design actually goes around how you are moving material. Okay, right? If you are, for example, earlier before your assembly line technique or the single piece flow, it was the material that used to go for the assembly. Okay, right? But when you put it in a linear way, everything was getting assembled on the line. Okay, so it's ultimately how you're organizing or reorganizing your flow, right? So movement of material is a very key component of design. Okay, whether the man is going to the machine or the machine is going to the man. Okay, are you putting the material in an automated way or somebody else is doing it? Now extrapolate this into the e-commerce world. Okay, now what is the most unique thing about, or most common thing about the e-commerce industry that you observe is that everything is getting delivered to your door, isn't it? Now, if everything was not getting delivered to your door, how would you solve the problem? Earlier, you had to go to a store to get it. Okay, end of the day, the consumer is getting the product. Only the mean of delivery is changing. Okay, whether the food comes to your table in a restaurant or you go to in a buffet, You go to where the food is arranged and pick it up and bring it back to your table. It's just a question of design. So to answer your question specifically, irrespective of what technology comes next, it is all about design. So please sharpen your design thinking, design thinking capabilities. If you're not able to crack the design, you don't crack anything, irrespective of what technology, what industry, whatever sphere you're working in. That's my answer to your question. Thank you, Abhishek.
That was quite insightful, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Abhishek. Next, Apurva, you can ask the question. Apurva?
Yes, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah. So thank you very much for such an insightful session. My question is that operations is thought to be a heavily human-involved field, but with the introduction of technologies such as AI and IoT, how do you see our future from employment, from employment point of view?
Let me take this question. Certainly, means over the period of time, slowly on the shop floor in the operations, the number of people who were working earlier, it is coming down. And those works are being taken by robots, cobots. But parallelly, it is giving rise to a new area of work, which is also equally important. And that is, who is going to manage these robots? Who is going to manage these cobots? These were not there initially. But now, with the numbers getting increased, we require a team of specialists who will work with this, who will optimize this, who will ultimately lead to more requirement, what is required to be done. So AI and ML will only work when you can make a platform, when you can make an environment from where you have got lots of data, and based on that you can take a decision. So this thing was not there sometimes back, but now industries have started adding into their workforce these specialist people who will ultimately become the backbone and the main source of analyst, which will help the management to take the right decisions. So this is a very big, it's a very big area that is coming. Initially, we never had a position by the name of analyst. Today, we have a group of analysts, huge amount of analysts who are working in the organization. So these are new jobs that has come because some jobs has gone, and the number of this is equally.
I'll just like to add on to what Rajesh said. And I think one more area or emerging area for employment, since your question was about getting employed, which are the areas where you could be targeting. And I think one very emerging field is that of the translator. Okay. Now, a technology or a algorithm does not learn by itself. A machine learning algorithm does not learn by itself. It has to be trained. Okay. Right. So in that sense, you have to give it the context and the correct data for training it. That is point number one. Number two is for the technology people, to the data analysts, to the coders, to the people who are creating those, deep learning models and all that. The business context still needs to be explained. Okay, what is your business deliverable? What is the KPI that you are driving? What is the function that you are trying to optimize? Okay, and ultimately, I mean, like if you are say driving market share, you're driving OTIFs, or you're driving whatever business KPI, unless you translate it in a way that a technology person understands it, nothing will come out. So that bridging of the gap between technology and business is something you should all endeavor to develop, whether you end up getting a job of a technology translator or you do not. Okay, but always trying to find a way wherein the business context, the use case is understood by the machine. That's the only thing I wanted to add to what Rajesh said. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for this giving an idea of what skills we need to work upon. Moving on, Tanmay, you can ask your question.
Yeah. Good afternoon, sir. So since we are talking about technology disruptions and futuristic technologies, I actually wanted to ask something like it hasn't been applied yet. So if you see how SpaceX is taking strides to go to Mars, and probably in a couple of, maybe a couple of 10 years, 10 years or 20 years, we may end up in Mars. And so how will the supply chain look then? Like, will it be more of a centralized kind where, only one company takes the onus of, say, putting rockets on Mars? Or will it be more decentralized where, now each and every company has a fleet of their own, like Amazon has a fleet of their own aeroplanes to deliver parcels. So how will that look? Will companies own rockets, or how do you think will the supply chain look?
So Tanmay, maybe I can take this question again.
Yeah, sure.
Whatever we produce, we don't deliver, correct? Most of us, we don't deliver. There will be logistics companies, maybe SpaceX or maybe XYZ, they will take the goods wherever they need to. Or who knows that tomorrow, some of us or some of you may not be us from the panel side, but you may be sitting in the Mars and running the operation there.
Yeah, in fact, just to add on this, the last mile delivery, which we call in logistics today, this is becoming more and more prominent, and with so many players now started coming into this arena, you will find a huge amount of people who are working in this area. So all these technology companies, Zomato, Swiggy, what are they? They are simply last mile deliverers.
So do you see Indian companies come into this sector? Because now it is heavily, relied on Chinese and Indian players. Like all of the techs, like the space startups are all Chinese and US.
We are seeing Shark Tank, and all the entrepreneurs that are there, I'm seeing they're all Indians. You are the next generation entrepreneurs who are going to come. So would certainly like to see you come forward and be the Indian who can rule in this space and in this arena.
It's all about capital. Shark is one level of capital in immersion. Then you have private equity. If you just go back the chain, then you have cloud sourcing. So the sky is the limit. But Tanmay, to answer your question, see the various scenarios that you were asking. Okay, whether it will be centralized, it will be decentralized. There are different scenarios that can possibly play out. Okay. Now, what you have to see is for every scenario, there is a value that is getting unlocked. Okay. Now, the rule of the business is wherever the value is maximized, water will flow that way. It is as simple as that. Where you place your asset, for example, in a negotiation, is where the asset is valued more. Okay, which currency you pay for is about which currency has the highest value. So it's all about value discovery. It is not that this answer will be right or that answer will be right. Every scenario will have a value. It will play out. Whatever scenario maximize the value for the business, that will be the one that will be stable. And it'll have to be discovered. It is an iterative process. You'll have to go, just as you go through a price discovery cycle, you will go through the business will go through a value discovery cycle. There could be centralization, there could be decentralization. And again, somebody comes and disrupts the model. So you have to learn to play that game. Okay, so if you want to make an impact and if you want to leverage it, you've got to learn to play that game of value.
I hope, Tanmay, that answered your question.
Yeah.
So from space, we're coming back to Earth. Arjun, your question, please.
Yes. So first of all, thank you, panelists. It has been a really informative session. And my question will be, actually, I will like to ask it from Mr. Ravi Kumar, sir. So, sir, as you have talked about that, how the treatment is going, it is actually, we are delivering it to each and every person. We have customized the whole treatment process. So we have seen on the other companies as well as a case study that there is a really big challenge in this thing, that the supply chain is really hard hit, because we need to take the information from the user, make a process on it, and give the right treatment to the customer. And moreover, it also increases the cost of treatment. So how do you think this, I want to know that how the pharma industry is going to solve this issue?
So we are talking about two things. The first one is the change itself, where we are having customized therapies for people who really need it. So that is happening for sure. The second piece is delivery of that change, how best we can do it. So if you look at, I will just give you this COVID vaccine example. India has done it even before. Just for the knowledge, is that we have delivered pulse polio vaccine, and it is again a temperature controlled vaccine, especially when you are doing it in the rural areas or any area. It has to go in a thermal controlled box, and then only it should be delivered for its efficacy. So India has done that kind of delivery in the past. I'm just talking from a developing market scenario. Now, if you look at our COVID vaccine facility as well right now, it has been mastered finally, right? When you look at the initial case versus where we are today, we are very much comfortable, and it has given rise to a completely new set of industry. The entire cold chain has been completely standardized with this process. So overall, there is always this, as Dr. Ravi Prakash said, that first the design will come in, and then this entire enabling functions will definitely fit in there as you get the economies of scale sitting in there. So yes, going forward, the future is like this. I have my Apple Watch. I have a ECG red alert. Ambulance comes in, takes me away, and immediately probably I have been looked after, and I'm out in 2 days. Something like that is happening, and it is happening on such a note that that ambulance is the nearest ambulance which is coming, just like you get an Uber as well. And similarly, the doctor is not sitting in the hospital where you are being treated, but somewhere else. But there is a robot and everything, and you get the same outcome, which you can get anywhere. So that way, the delivery, I believe, in future is getting to get, just look at the telemedicine, which has changed significantly in the past 2 years, just because few of us are not willing to go to the clinics. So it has changed significantly for a lot of things. You just can do it with telemedicine, and it will just going to evolve so much that eventually you will have those hologram doctors sitting in front of you giving you the same thing, but the virtual one, not the, so you still are interacting with the best of specialists, but he's sitting like a hologram in front of you, giving you the same interaction, giving you the same proximity, closeness, the rapport which builds between a patient and a doctor, but still he's not there in presence, in physically present. So I think delivery is going to be, as Dr. Ravi Prakash says, the design piece of it, and technology is making it possible. So I firmly believe, and to the other question I didn't answer, ISRO, just for your knowledge, if you have not read so, Mr. Elon Musk has already complimented ISRO on many things. So if at all he sees a competitor, it's ISRO kind of companies, which when corporatized, that means they can take up this Mars and other things as well, obviously can do wonders. We are one of the most economical yet productive companies who are putting space rockets today. So we should be proud of that. Yes, our time probably has not come yet. China and US are ahead of us in terms of the evolution, which is fine, but it will come someday for sure. And we are, I think, equally capable. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, panel, for such an in-depth and insightful answer. But due to the paucity of time, we'll move forward to our next segment. Anisha, hand it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Raju. On behalf of the entire fraternity of IIM Shillong, I'd like to extend a hearty vote of thanks to all our esteemed panelists who, despite their busy schedules, took out time to grace us with their presence at the occasion with their extremely relevant viewpoints on the topic, modernizing operations to disruptive technologies and resilience. The discussion was very insightful, and we are pretty confident that this would help us all in our future endeavors. So as a small token of appreciation, I'd like to present each of the speakers with a small memento. Amol Nagar, sir. Next we have is Rajesh Sharma, sir. Ravi Prakash, sir. Ravi Kumar, sir. And last but not the least, Sachin Punekar sir. Thank you, everyone. We would also like to thank our moderator, our Professor Kailash Chaudhary, for carrying out such a smooth session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, students.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kailash.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, all the panelists. It was enlightening to hear all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, IIM Shillong. All the
Thank you
best
so
to
much.
you all.
Likewise here.
Thank you.